let's take a look at constants in Rust. Constants. So similar to variables, but not the same, So constants, essentially, you want to use constants to ensure that the values in variables just cannot be changed, right? We know that when we use let and we establish a variable, by default it's immutable. We can then mutate these variables, we can change them. I'm even going to show you how you can overshadow variables / override them. However, with constants, you just can't do these things. And you would want to do this if you want to make sure that whatever you're setting up and storing into memory is never going to change. So the keyword for constants is const, okay? So we can see right here. Constants must be explicitly stated with that constant keyword, okay? So I just restated the same thing. So I don't know, we didn't need to say that twice, but we'll leave the explicit part actually. So what are the naming conventions for constants? So all characters in a constant variable should be in uppercase. That's the proper convention. So when you do make a constant, if let's say your constant is a girl or a user, you would write it like this, const user, not const user, right? It has to be uppercase. So I'll even do i.e. const user, all right? Very good. Okay, so let's look at an example together so that it could be even more clear. So as I mentioned, overshadowing variables work for variables and will essentially override the variable, okay? Now, don't be confused. This isn't reassigning a variable. This is overshadowing. So for example, if I have the function main here, we have our main function. Let's say we want to have a variable x, so we're going to say let x, and it's going to be an immutable variable x, and we're just going to assign it the value of 5. What I can do to override this variable is I could create another variable x, and I can set it to 6. And if I bring in the print macro, and we just run x, and we go ahead and run the code, we're going to see at the bottom that we get a value of 6. So hopefully this makes sense to you, right? Like what just happened here? We had x at 5, then we override x with 6. What Rust does, it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, these are the same declaration names. We don't need this one, so we're going to replace it with this one, and that's the result that's going to come out. And you can do this with variables. Now, can you do this with constants? So how would I even write a constant? So I could say constant, let's say, y, right, because we want to use the proper convention, equals 5. Constant y equals 6. Okay, now we're going to print y. Oops, should be uppercase. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Now the first thing, what's the first thing we see at the very top? The name y is defined multiple times, error, E0428. So there you go. So this is to ensure that we never want y to change. If we're running code, let's say, and we're in a situation where we know that the infrastructure of y, that memory, whatever that we want to contain there, under no circumstances that should change, we would run constant. And there can be cases where this is very important, right? Certain pieces of information that hold our structures together in our code, we don't want to ever have change. We're gonna work with const. And when, let's say, we're changing values, or depending on a dynamic result, that's when we could work with mutable variables, or variables that could be overridden and all of that. All right, so let that sink in. Play around with this for yourself. Try running some code, try to get some errors, try to fix this so this works, right? But let's just add a comment that this will not work with const. Okay. Okay, short and sweet, best way to be, and let it sink in, and when you're ready, I'll see you for the next lesson.